All right, everyone. If you can hear my voice, please make your way to the main stage. We are about to start the next panel. Really excited to introduce this group of people. This is a conversation that originated with Sean Simon talking about, just exploring the resources that are available for entrepreneurs from Tulsa. We've got a lot of great people coming to our city. This panel is really about how we're investing in people that are born here, that are from here. Excited to introduce this next group of people for Born on Black Tech Street with Tyrance Billingsley, Sean Simon, and Desiree Friesen.
All right. How's everyone doing? All right. How's everyone Saturday? Consuming lots of great knowledge, and it's hot. Yep. It is very hot, but that's one of the things that I love about actually living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is the heat. So it's my favorite thing, and the sky. So great. So I'm glad everyone was able to make it out to the summit this weekend to consume lots of great knowledge, and I'm so happy to have this panel for today. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some introductions, talk about who we are and what we do. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump into some questions about Black Tech Street and what it means to us and how we're growing and developing it in our different ways. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Sean.
Yes, my name is Sean Simon. I'm the founder of Stace. With Stace, we're a management and payments platform for SMB restaurants, as well as SMB retail businesses. Born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm relocated back, to Tulsa. Been in Dallas for the past 10 years. Built up several companies out there. Most recently, we had an exit with the software company in Dallas. So I'm happy to be back. Happy to build here in Tulsa. With the community as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tyrance Billingsley. I'm the founder and executive director of Black Tech Street, and I'm also the co-founder and board chairman for Tulsa Creative Engine. So, we thought about what Black Tech Street kind of came about when I thought about, what could Black Wall Street have been had it been supported and not destroyed. And, when I thought about the level of tenacity that it took for these entrepreneurs to build these incredible businesses during Jim Crow, the smashing through walls and the out-of-the-box thinking kind of reminded me a lot of the tech industry. And, that's kind of when I had this three-pronged epiphany, which is, one, tech is one of the only industries you can build intergenerational wealth in 7 to 10 years in via successful exit. Two, tech is the core medium through which most global innovation and the creation of new wealth-generating markets takes place consistently. And then three, that, by the year 2030, there's projected to be 4.3 million vacant high-paying tech jobs due to a tech talent shortage. So when I thought about all three of those things, I not only saw an incredible wealth building opportunity for Black people, I kind of saw the Black Wall Street vision push to this new horizon. So I kind of envisioned, had Black Wall Street been supported and not destroyed, it would be nothing other than a premier Black tech hub. So that's where the name Black Tech Street comes from. And our org, our mission is to rebirth Black Wall Street as a Black tech capital, but also catalyze this movement that sees Black people embrace tech as a means to build wealth and impact the world. So in the day-to-day, we serve as a liaison between the Tulsa ecosystem and Black tech opportunities. So we partner with different companies and programs to get resources that will help Black people either break into the tech workforce or become tech entrepreneurs.
And my name is Desiree Friesen. I am the director of programming with Build in Tulsa, and Build in Tulsa partners with organizations like Black Tech Street. We are working to catalyze multi-generational wealth for Black tech founders. We partner with 3 accelerator programs here in Tulsa, which are Act Tulsa, the Build in Tulsa Tech Startup Accelerator Program, and Lightship Capital. We also have partners outside of Black Tech Street, like Urban Coders Guild. Hopefully a few of you have heard of Michael Vaughn, who's leading those efforts there. And we partner with other organizations here in Tulsa to help elevate Black entrepreneurship. We do pitch competitions. We have free tech programs like the Build Up Workshop Series. We actually just launched a Boost Microgrant program to help elevate entrepreneurs who actually just may not even be tech, but need some type of tech enablement or tech infusion to help run their business models or help at least enhance and improve it at this point in time. So our micrograms help to cover costs in that nature. So we have a host of different programs to help elevate Black entrepreneurs here in Tulsa. And I'm actually not from Tulsa. I was brought here through the program in Tulsa last year to work with Build in Tulsa. So I'm excited to be working with partners like Sean and Tyrants as well. All right, so let's dive into our first question. So what are some of the big things that need to happen to truly make Tulsa like Black Tech Street, like to really compete on that market?
So, from my vantage point, definitely early stage capital is probably the chicken before the egg, right? And when I say early stage capital, I'm pertaining to, angel capital, right? Because there is many options of, say seed stage or, institutional round, capital that's available. But for, the community and for founders, to really kind of get off the ground, that access to, angel stage capital, but also, access to, a community of founders to where, we have, resources, mentorship resources, that we're able to take advantage of and we're able to move forward, right? Because, one of the biggest things, within Black founders, not just here, but just across the United States is resources, right? And, it's a combination of capital, it's a combination of mentorship, and it's a combination of that facilitates growth, right? There's enough talent, for Black founders to continue to move forward. But, the combination of those things is definitely something, that needs to be in place, that needs to be cultivated, that will allow, Black Tech Street to, take on the mantra and really be, what it is, for the tech founders to really be able to thrive.
I don't think I need to say much, but no, I 100% agree with you. Early stage capital is a key component. I also think a core narrative change of, what it looks like to be a tech founder, who can be a tech entrepreneur. That's one of the key deals. I mean, of course, resource-wise, you're going to need capital. You need a host of entrepreneur support programs like Build in Tulsa offers. You're going to need access to workforce so you can hire the right people. But I think at a more fundamental level, one of the largest reasons why the tech industry looks the way it is outside of systemic issues is because of the way we talk about tech and the way people perceive who can and should be in tech, whether you be a CEO or a worker. So I think one of the things that positions BTS to do something incredible is channeling the Black Wall Street narrative that we have towards entrepreneurship, specifically towards the tech industry. I think is going to be one of the most grassroots, like massive shifts that we could see that'll see Black people say, this is an industry that is ripe for me to build wealth for my family.
Can you give us an example of one of those narratives?
Yeah, well, I mean, simply like look at what happened with Black Wall Street. Like first and foremost, when O.W. Gurley bought the land down here, they put out these ads that said, "You come to Tulsa to build your vision." And that's how you got Black entrepreneurs from all over the country flocking to Tulsa. I mean, fun fact, Tulsa was called Greenwood because the largest amount of entrepreneurs that came to Tulsa were from a town in Mississippi called Greenwood, Mississippi. But the reason I point that out is because all they did was they blasted out this new idea that Tulsa's this place you can come to build your dreams, and it won't be encumbered. It'll be unencumbered by a lot of the racist issues that you typically would face. Now, unfortunately, that didn't ultimately end up being the case. It was for a while, but it wasn't ultimately. With BTS, I think getting these kids, whether they're young or whether they're new entrepreneurs coming in, and saying, by you going into the tech industry, you are helping follow in the footsteps and create the next iteration of Black Wall Street. I don't think there's a more powerful narrative to get people to embrace something they haven't typically touched.
Yeah. So for Sean, for you, when did you realize that you were a tech entrepreneur? Like, when did you realize you had it in your blood?
So I've been an entrepreneur, or, where I'm from, we like to call, Black people the entrepreneurs. We like to call them hustlers, right? So I've, quote unquote, been a hustler pretty much my entire life. But it wasn't until I moved to Dallas that I got exposed to essentially tech, right? Tech companies. Playing around on the internet, different things like that. Someone came to me and was like, this is a company, right? I just thought, Snapchat was a product. There's a company behind this. So, just kind of doing different things. And, I became exposed to that, right? down within Dallas, because Dallas is a thriving community. The startup scene is really growing and really bustling. So from in there, I took the opportunity to get into an early stage startup, right? Which I recommend, anyone that wants to found a company or work for a company, to get into an early stage startup, because it essentially kind of turns into an MBA, right? You're going to learn everything about the company, you're going to learn everything about about the industry, about the market, different verticals, because you're doing everything, right? When you're in an early stage startup and it's only 5 people, it's not necessarily roles, it's not necessarily hierarchy, it's just kind of getting things done. So it's almost a crash course into moving forward. So going through there and going through various different companies, that was my introduction, right? And that was okay. The tech is the revolution, and for us is how can we capture this, right? How can we capture the present as well as the future? Because it wasn't going anywhere, right? It wasn't going anywhere, and as of now, it's still growing, right? It's still new tech that's coming out. It's still different verticals. The tech is evolving. You have AI, you have AR, VR, etc. So for me, it was okay. We need to be a part of moving forward. The way of life. So that was why, and that was the reason why still stayed into this.
But you were exposed to that in Dallas, and now we look at that, and how do we get that exposure here for our youth? Going back to what Tyrone was talking about, how that exposure starts young, and then also being able to work for an early stage startup does give you a lot of those skill sets that you need to kind of break out,
right.
As an entrepreneur on your own eventually. And so, but then it's like a chicken and egg situation, is that's where we need the,
right.
We need the angel market, the money, just the capital market. And then, we need the workforce development market, but then we need enough pipeline of companies
right.
here as well that are accelerating and growing, but then to grow, they need the capital. So it's just it's
a conundrum.
It's like a vacuum of issues, And so what else besides just the capital and the workforce do you think that we need to really grow
I think
Tulsa market?
I think another big thing is visibility, right? Mm-hmm. For me, with doing different things, it wasn't a lot of visibility in Black and brown or underserved people in tech, right? Even if there were, we didn't know where they were. We didn't know who to look for. So it was almost kind of pioneering into something new. Right. Even to this day, I still talk to people and I tell them, what we're doing. They're like, well, I don't know. What is that? Right. What are you doing? So visibility into what tech is, it's not, you don't always have to be a founder or entrepreneur, quote unquote. But, being a part of, what's going on is huge. Right. So, for us in terms of, youth or, teens, trying to, figure out what they want to do within the city. If we're visible, you have really, I would say dynamite founders that are in Tulsa right now, right? Just kind of, spread out the different sectors. If, we're able to kind of put them, within the forefront, to show, okay, hey, there's people that look like me that are young, that, that are thriving, that are being successful and doing something completely different. Not, sports and entertainment, they're actually able to, do various different things that they're probably not thinking about. So visibility is huge.
I mean, any industry could be, re-engineered, and and there's tech in there,
Right.
There's tech everywhere. So what are some of the programs and organizations currently doing in this space in Tulsa that you would like to elevate besides yourselves, like the work that you're doing?
I mean, there's too many to name. Building Tulsa would be clearly one of the big ones. I really want to elevate ACT House because ACT House is doing some genuinely incredible work. They, the ACT model actually stands for Architect, Creative, and Techie, and Dominic Artis is actually trying to figure out what is the formula for getting, creating the right teams that make companies that are successful and make them scale. So offering the $70K in non-dilutive capital is, we talk about capital, non-dilutive capital is really a game changer if you're able to get it. So clearly elevating them because I've been wanting to really been able to give them flowers for a while. So I think they just had their second demo day.
Yep.
They've got another one coming up. I'm excited to see what the TechStars Accelerator does. Actually, I wonder if you want to go in a little bit more about them, Desiree. I'd like for people to hear about that.
Yeah, the TechStars Accelerator just launched August 8th. So they just completed week 6, and we have 12 companies. 2 are from Tulsa, who have come all from across all way across the country. And we have companies that are doing things in like clean tech and ag tech. We have a woman, Dawn Cornelius, who's working on one app called Human, and it helps you describe the human in dating. And so it's supposed to make dating different than what we're used to, and then the Bumble and the Tinder world and the environment, especially for 40 plus individuals. And so even though, I'm getting up there, not there yet, that one's the most interesting to me. And so in like a market like Tulsa, just bringing it back for a second to infrastructure is something that when we think about bringing in companies, and I'm thinking of infrastructure and men because, the dating pipeline is weak here in Tulsa, but to really have a thriving market, I think those are, certain things that do attract people. And so what do you think that this market also needs help with in terms of infrastructure and kind of bringing in and developing the type of talent that we want to see here in Tulsa?
So the infrastructure in Tulsa actually does still need a lot of work. And even though we're talking about entrepreneurial infrastructure, I would even go so far as to talk about things like broadband, access to technology, like on a very basic level. Specifically, Black Tulsans, there's a big divide there. And if we want to get to being the kind of hub we need to be, we not only need the entrepreneurial infrastructure, we need to get people access to internet, people access to technology, people digitally literate, like on a basic level. But when it comes to the actual ecosystem, for infrastructure, I think having physical space for, Black tech entrepreneurs, I know those are some things that are on the way. A space for people to congregate, a community for people to actually interact with, rather than just see every now and then at events, but a place for them to truly be knit together and have access to resources. I also think that another big thing that is missing, kind of like as you talked about visibility, I think there needs to be more, which is actually something BTS is on the verge of taking on. There needs to be more of an elevation of the entrepreneurs who've been successful here and who are being successful here. Because when you see people who've done it, that becomes a game changer for you, and that really helps shatter your art of the possible. So I think in terms of that infrastructure, those things are probably most crucial.
And that's like media infrastructure there too. That's media entertainment. We have the Black Wall Street Times. Have you guys heard of that before? Nehemiah Frank, great. And so, but we need more of that, right? We need to elevate more of our narrative. So that means that we need that kind of like base infrastructure of more of us in those seats as well, kind of telling those narratives. And so, yeah, there's just so much. And then I was talking about the organizations, and as we're sitting here in Holberton and we're thinking about tech education, and this is one platform, Urban Coders Guild is one platform. And then of gatherings places, there's 36 Degrees North, which has 3 locations now, and we'll be building a mega location across the street. And so there's gathering spots, but there's still, still going to be so much work to be done to really create the sustainable infrastructure to create different levels of, from idea to MVP to growth stage, all the way to Series A, Series B, and scale and up. And so making sure that we have the infrastructure to match the needs of companies across all different levels. And so the organizations and programs that are currently existing are doing great jobs. And so that's why we need you guys and the work that we're doing to not only just take advantage of the programming, but also that's where you become the creator yourselves. And we're at the Spark Summit, and we're talking about energy and new ideas and elevation as well. And so this is where space is being created for us to be able to provide that feedback and contribute to others, and hopefully what we see and what we can build here together, going the basis of what we're talking about, Tyrants.
There's the company that's, putting on the festival, and not necessarily putting on, but the management process of this festival is Black founders, right? They're building a company here in Tulsa. So, like I said, in terms of visibility, these are things that needs to be, pushed to the forefront, right? And even us, being on the stage right now, and, for us, everyone that's in the audience, part of that is passing on information, right? The transfer of information, the transfer of access. It's not many in the crowd, but that's how it starts, right? In terms of, okay, hey, what we heard here, now we can go find someone that we can tell it, right? And then from there, they can find someone that can tell it, right? They can find someone that can grow it. Ideally, this is almost kind of a microcosm of what we're talking about, right? The promotion, the visibility of even what we're doing on a panel, right? It's kind of lackluster in terms of, the visibility for everyone to be able to know what we're talking about, right? And so that's what I mean, right? That's what I mean in the sense of the resources, the different things that needs to be had that aren't present, right? The room should be packed in terms of what we're talking about. So everyone that's sitting within the chair can say, hey, what Tyron said, what Sean said, what Desiree said needs to be, heard, right? We need to pass this along to, youth within, the community. We need to pass this along to other founders, that are within the community so it can continue to grow. That's the groundwork. That's, the fundamental foundation of, how it will move forward. And for us, we have to take the reins on that, right? Because it's not necessarily going to be pushed voluntarily. That's just the fact of the matter. And we have to take the reins and we have to really move that forward.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking, like the visibility of it. I mean, of course, I want to hear Sean speak, but I know this is the first festival, Dream Day Festival, but I would think like we can somehow get like the kids, like the high school kids in the community, like to be somehow a part of this, like that it's pushed towards them because the older people will come, who enjoy the music, but like I think the kids in the high schools and the middle schools need to hear things about tech, like this, and instead of because we kids from inner city, black kids, minority kids, we're the ones who make these tech and app things boom, just like clothing, or shoes. It's our influence in the amount of money that we spend yearly on these type of things that pushes these companies who start really with not us in mind.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So y'all have us in mind, but we needed somehow this needed to be like a room full of high school students more.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like basically kind of like South by Southwest, but on a high school, like pushing towards them.
Right.
So that's who I think is like hear more of this.
Right.
To influence them to maybe like, okay, these are people that's from where I'm from and they're successful. Okay, I like that because when they see successful rappers, they're like, okay, I want to be that. But if they see somebody like Sean who's from the north side of Tulsa, and they're like, okay, he's successful in this, like, I want to be into that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a start. So
Go for time too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out right now is what is the interplay of culture with, with entrepreneurship in these movements? I mean, we see, whether it be with TikTok or music or whatever else, anything that young people latch onto and that gets embedded in culture really ends up exploding. So knocking on that door of how we get the tech into the, mainstream, that culture that is so viral these days, I think that's how we get it to where it's scaling beyond what we could even imagine.
Sorry, that was such a great question. Yeah. And that kind of goes into the next one talk about the importance of investing in locals, but also having the wisdom, experience, and influence of tech leaders from outside of Tulsa.
So, I love, building Tulsa. I love Tulsa Remote. Obviously I'm from here. So, any progression, of the city, I grew up not too far from here. So, as kids, we would come around and downtown wasn't, really a place to go. Right. It wasn't a place to hang out. It was a very dangerous area. It's actually funny when I drive around, I see certain buildings and I like high-rise condos. I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like, yeah. It's like, yeah. And it's the same building, So, I love, what these programs, bring to the city and the talent, that's driving, to the city now, with founders that are here. But not only building in Tulsa, but building with Tulsa. That's something that, should be just as aggressive, right? There's plenty of local colleges, right? Whether it's in Tulsa, whether it's in Oklahoma City, but also in terms of, high school or just community in general, right? Obviously we know that there's a gap in terms of, tech understanding or tech learning, but everyone doesn't have to be a developer. Everyone doesn't have to, run data. Everyone doesn't have to, be in finance, right? There's tons of roles in sales. There's tons of roles in customer success. customer support, user experience, etc. That doesn't have the necessary education, that's needed, right? But these roles produce higher level salaries, right? The baseline of some of these jobs, $60,000, $70,000. Trust me, I pay them. Payroll can be crazy. So, these things, are, base level jobs, but, can provide, opportunity and access, for these individuals, because that's the community, right? Those are the people that are, shopping. Those are the people that are buying things in the community, buying restaurants. So, the local community is relying upon them, right? So, for us, or even, within these programs that bring individuals in to build, within the community, we have to, take responsibility in hiring the local community. And I understand, everything is remote, which is great, right? But, we have to, say, okay, well, a certain percentage of our hiring cohort should be, local individuals. To where we can, continue to, grow grassroots. And those individuals respond more, right? They might, go on to be, the founders, or they might go on to be directors at, other different companies. But that's the part of it that needs to, continue to move forward.
Tyrus?
So one of the things that, I've had conversations with Tulsa Remote about, and, Act House as well, is when we bring in entrepreneurs and we bring in people in tech, rather than simply just having them be here, pairing them with different mentors with different people within the community more directly, so that their presence is more immediately, being felt, in the sense that, I got paid to come here, I got courted to come here, but, and I'm coming here and building my business here in Tulsa, but I'm also building a community here I'm putting knowledge into it. I'm mapping out where all the Black businesses are, and I'm spending that money that I'm getting from my success with the Black businesses. I think there's a system that can be created to where we have people who come in who are being the beacons that they need to be, but are also forming the infrastructure that's helping uplift the people who are already here. So I think that model is how they'll play off of each other to help our city move.
And when you see, other tech hubs across the country, what drives, the growth and the ecosystem of these hubs is the local community, right? It's obviously, there's a little bit, there's a little bit more advancement in terms of, understanding, but, you have Boston, you have Austin, you have, the Bay Area, you have Miami, these all, there's people that are in the city, right? You speak to a lot of the, successful founders, they grew up here, right? They grew up in these areas. They grew up in Seattle. Obviously, that's a long game that takes time, but everyone, that's here now are the builders, right? We might not be able to see, we'll see the results of what our company is, but, in terms of the easier it comes, the further down the line it goes, right? It's actually, I was talking to one of my friends not too long ago. He was in YC. He was in the early stages of YC. And, originally their first checks was like $20,000, right? Yeah. But now they're giving out $500,000 checks. But if it wasn't for him taking the $20,000 and blowing the company up, they wouldn't have got to the point to now those founders can get in and get $500,000 check on their first check. So that's kind of responsibility of what we're doing right now. For Tyrants and for myself, capital access, for early stage, it might be harder. Right. But, say the kid right now that's in McLean High School, once he goes through, 4 or 5 years later, 6 years later, whatever the case may be. OK, well, now there's 10 VC firms. There's an angel group. Black Tech Street is now an accelerator. Right now we have a full angel group where we can deploy capital, for certain criteria that we list. Right. So, that's the process of it, and that's the process that has to be had. It is a long game, but, if we continue to, part the course, it'll make it happen.
Who in the city or state do we need to partner with to kind of drive some success in these areas?
Ask it one more time.
Who to help drive some of these, because, one of the things I hear a lot is about community integration and, working in the schools a lot. And so to me, I also hear that means working with some city agencies and departments or initiatives or programs, or relying on some of these potential resources to help drive some of this work. That's just what I'm assuming. But so if there's not a partnership there, then that's okay too.
I think we're getting the partnerships we need. BTS and Build in Tulsa both partner with Tulsa Innovation Labs on the Build Back Better grant that we recently won. So I think that was a coalition of a lot of different government entities, and $39 million is now going to come to advanced aerial mobility. So I mean that's a big win. I think leaning in more with Partner Tulsa, Partner Tulsa, formerly TAO, Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity. They're really thinking a lot about the Tulsa economy and how to grow opportunities here. TAO previously, but Partner Tulsa now, has been engaged with BTS's in 2031 initiative. They've been engaged with a lot of the different economic development efforts for Black people. So I think the city needs partnerships, but in some respects, the city still needs to get on board with the buy-in of what is happening with this movement.
And things like that's okay to say too. I'm going to give it to Francis, and then we're going to come over to you.
I wanted to get your reaction to something. So what do you think about the idea of Tulsa Motors co-founding businesses with historic Tulsans? So like someone who's new to the city, creating a business with someone who's been here for maybe multiple generations. What do you think about that?
I think that's a cool idea. And I actually think, I've actually had a conversation with Dom at Act House about that, because doing that still is going to require, because, starting a business with somebody is a big deal. Somebody could say that's as important as dating somebody, getting on an app, if not more so. So how do you make sure that the match is good there? I think that's an incredible idea, and I actually think Act House could be leveraged to help figure out which entrepreneurs should be starting businesses with locals.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. Again, to that point, being a co-founder is very difficult, right? It's not something that you can say, okay, you got a skill, I got a skill, let's go, right? It's a very difficult task. And, it takes a lot of, personal development, a lot of personal relationship, to get certain things done. I do think it's interesting, right? Done right, I think it can work out really well. But again, a part of that is some of what we were speaking about earlier, is that one side of the coin might not be up to par as the other side of the coin, right? Just because the numbers aren't there. Right, we can say, okay, well, we can find any founder that wants to come here, for that type of opportunity. But how many founders can we find from here that are able to say, okay, well, hey, we will put you in front of a company, we want you to lead it, right? There's probably not as many on the other side. Or, again, done right. But again, I don't know how long, we can get to that point.
Go for it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, anytime you hear about ideas that can happen in Tulsa, the done right is always gonna be the caveat, because we got a history of not doing things the right way, and sometimes even if you have a right idea, you don't do it the right way, it's not gonna move. So that's always key.
Do you think here in Tulsa, we discounted the human capital that already exists in Tulsa for those who have proven themselves to be more capable because they come from bigger cities, bigger markets, and they were really overlooking, I'm just gonna call it like our members of North and West Tulsa. When people say North Tulsa, that really is a small area. They think of north of Admiral, right before Pine, with the exception of people who live in the heights that kind of, the areas that have been gentrified. When you go to Turvey, that's past 56th Street North. When you go to 46th Street, you look at over there with the McLean Shopping Center, it's vacant. Why are we so hesitant to put spaces like, honestly, Fulkerton or 36th Street or put anything in North Tulsa because it's deemed dangerous, isn't the right climate, there's something out there. I think in part it's by design, right? To push down property values, make it easy to obtain if there's something out there. There's no home ownership. But why are we discounting people who have been here, who can still be here, and we're just pushing them from one area to talk to the other without actually investing in other people?
That's one of my number one pet peeves with the city and how we do things. But I will say, I think Desiree know, there's some interesting investments coming to both North and East Tulsa, pretty big ones coming here pretty soon. But I the problem you just highlighted is probably the main problem that the entire ecosystem of Tulsa has right now as it relates to its talent, you know. But that's partially because Tulsa's a growing city. And when you're a growing city, the things that make headlines and make you look prestigious is what kind of talent are you attracting, what's coming from the outside. That's a metric that I think most of the entities that move in this city just frankly care more about because it helps get the city on the map more. But I do think we're absolutely overlooking our homegrown talent. I mean, I've been a victim of it. A lot of other people here have been a victim of it. I mean, it's a thing, but we've got to learn how to get around it.
Yeah, and to answer your point directly, I would say yes, right? Which is part of the reason why I decided to come back. Even though it's okay, well, it's still outside, but there's a lot of talented individuals that had to leave, right? They had to leave, because they were ambitious, right? They were ambitious and they wanted to, seek various different things. For me, my goal was always to come back. Obviously, the city has grown. Different individuals here have grown, to where I'm able to kind of step back in and different things are moving forward. But the visibility of what we're speaking about is, okay, I want to be visible, right? Because I'm real Tulsa, right? I'm real Tulsa. I went to Hawthorne, right? Hawthorne is where I learned computers, right? That's where they taught me. I went to Roosevelt, right down the street there. My brother kind of has a lyric where he's like, I learned karate in Comanche. I spent tons of time in Comanche. I learned played football in Comanche. Well, you know what I mean? So it's different, right? It's different. And when that happens, I was speaking. One of my friends, he's an administrator at Rogers, right? And I went to Rogers, and because we used to live off Harvard at one point, and afterwards, after speaking with the kids, we're talking, and we're talking about different areas where they live, right? And it really hit me at that point because how excited they were that we were speaking about the same things. Oh, you used to live over there? Yeah, man, I live right over there by that house, behind there. That store used to be this and that. And how they, how excited they were to be like, oh, what I mean? Like, it's, I've never seen anyone that's right here where I can speak to them or I can touch them. It's, it's always been on TV or it's been in this area of interest. So that's my main focus, right? That's my main focus in combination with building a company. And that's really what's driving me to build a company where we want to go, right? We have the opportunity to build a multi-billion-dollar company here. And I don't take that light at all, right? But doing so, that puts into a perspective to say, okay, well, hey, now, another kid that lived on 46 in Lewis, or, another kid that was in Comanche or Burnham Manor or whatever the case may be, to say, well, look, if I can do it like this, I can do it like that. I have the opportunity to do something like this as well, right? My options aren't limited to certain things. And even in the respects of not just a founder, but employment, right? Because that's really where the bread gets broken, right? The bread gets broken in the employment. That's one thing I had to learn to be, okay, well, hey, if I get into one of these companies early as sales, well, I can get a piece of this pie, right? And which is where a lot of these individuals in some of these bigger companies become millionaires, right? They get into Figma, right? Figma just sold for $20 billion 2 days ago, right? A lot of people became millionaires just because they got into Figma 10 years ago. Right, or 9 years ago.
Too, though. That's where it goes back to the education and being able to know at a very young age what you're getting yourself into,
exactly.
What you're signing up for, and so how do you know what to sign up for if you don't know how to speak the common language?
Right.
And I think that's one of the bigger issues that I've noticed so far since I've been here, because I'm from the outside, and it's the way I think that people should be searching for things is not what people search for. And it's also how they see themselves as well. Sometimes is what I see that as well. But it's about being more place-based as well. We don't always just have to gather people downtown to where we are and just force people to come here for all of our programming. We can go to where we need to go to make sure that everyone has the same access to the programs as well. And that's capacity. Yeah, it's access and capacity. Yeah.
Beyond, as much as I love the work that GTFF does as a whole, because it's built so much in the last, honestly, the last 5 years, maybe 10 years from now. But looking at, making those partnerships where it may start with just a single educator in a classroom or an after-school program. And I'm starting to see
Yeah.
schools were already behind in Tulsa, so I'm just really curious.
And that's where it's like being imaginative and like this is where we can partner with the city and the Department of Education. I don't know what it's called here. I'm from New York, but but the Department of Education, and that's where we can help. We're using entrepreneurial skill sets. How do we use that from the intra perspective, from corporations? How do we train our city officials to think like entrepreneurs as well? And when we do that, does that trickle back down? Does a trickle effect come into play as well? So it's like the deep partnerships there and the level of education. So I think it comes back into the common language that we speak and that, to understand as well, to really be able to move this work forward. So we have about 2 minutes left, and I know you had a question over here.
Yeah, I was wondering, should you have to pay for, being in an accelerator program or a mentorship program? And how do you weed out people who maybe just want that early check from you versus actually helping you get to that next level?
Pay for you to participate in their accelerator? No. Yeah, man. Don't ever pay anyone for you to participate, in their accelerator, because what's the real value point, for you, right? There are a few of them around, that I've heard about. I don't think they're very successful in terms of the back end. But just to keep it short, no, don't ever pay anyone to be an accelerator. Don't ever give anyone equity, be a advisor. Don't ever do none of that, right? Because it's handicapping, it's terrible on your cap table. It'll be bad for you within the early stages as well.
Yeah, there's some accelerators that are notorious for messing up people's cap tables. And some of them take way too much equity in companies, and that's something that's something in the game that needs to change. To be honest, you can't claim to be about bolstering equity, but you're taking all the equity from the people you're trying to make equitable. Like, that's not.
That goes back down to language and education.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Because you got to be, communication is huge, right? Once you're able to speak the language, that's huge. And we actually probably should have touched on that, because that was one of the things that I had to understand as well, right? Being able to communicate, being able to understand the language, even as a founder, right? Being able to communicate with different people on, what the story is of our company. How can we structure this? All these different terms that, I didn't understand, at 23, right? But now, more so do. But as, these things continue to grow, well, actually just the one we just said, cap table, right? 21, what is a cap table, right? What does that even mean? Right. So, but again, those are things that as we continue to advance, we'll improve on.
All right. With that, we're going to enter a panel. So thank you guys so much for coming out,
Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
for joining us today. And please stay for more panels for the Spark Summit. Thank you guys.